Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Patrick Casteels. I'm one of the managing partners of Kappa Data, and I will be your host today for this webinar. We have a mixed audience today. Some of you are end users working for big companies or for governmental institutes, but we also have some resellers in the audience. You all have one thing in common, and that's that you are using PulseSecure SSL for secure SSL to your teleworkers. Most of you have ordered lots of extra subscriptions to respond to the enormous needs for teleworking, which we have seen as a result of Corona. Some of you have ordered extra licenses. Some of you are using ICE as a solution. And there is another thing you have in common. It needed to go very quick to get good responses to our lockdown we had in March. So we know now that teleworking is not going away. It will stay, and it will be widely used than before. So that's the reason why we thought that this webinar would be a good idea. It is about optimization. It is about giving you some tips and tricks to improve your SSL implementation. So you will be able to get more out of your SSL boxes. And looking to the enormous amount of subscriptions, that looked a very good idea. So we have our pre-sales engineer, Frederick van Wallen, that will bring you a session in the next hour. This session will be recorded, will be made available on YouTube, so you have accessibility to it later. And there is also room for some Q&A after the webinar. So don't worry about that. So I hand over now to Frederick, who will host you for the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, for this introduction. And welcome, everybody. So my name is Frederick van Wallen, pre-sales engineer at Kappa Data. And one of the products that I can help you with is PulseSecure, in this case, Pulse Connect Secure. And as Patrick already said, I'm presuming you all know a bit of the Pulse Connect Secure. This will be very technical. I will go into details. We will do some setups together, and it can go quite fast. If you have never seen some screens, it can go quite fast. So that's why we record a session. Don't spend your time taking screenshots, because 2 seconds later, I'm a bit further and you will have missed something. So just keep on looking, and we replay the video afterwards if you want to do some configurations yourself. We have also some people in the call from Pulse itself. We have Graham, team lead EMEA. We have Peter Andries, who is the SE since a month or something for the Benelux environment region. Pardon. We have Gerdy Dont. Most of you may already know him, who is the country manager for the Benelux region. So in the end, if you have questions for them, you can ask them too. And even afterwards, you know that they also saw the webinar, so you could refer to the webinar if you have some questions. What we will do today, it's quite a long agenda, but some of them will go pretty fast. I will not go through the list now because I will go into detail afterwards, but just know these are all more advanced features about this PulseSecure. I can't talk today about PulseSecure without talking about the new suites. I'm sorry for that, because this is more or less, it's more sales or marketing than it is technical, but there is a relationship with the technical part. You know the suites are like a box, and there are some products in it. You buy the box, you open the box, and the licenses are the individual products. So all the suites are now changed. The old suites will disappear. Today you can buy both of them. The Essential Suite will disappear. The old Essential Suite stops at a red line and adds 3 extra features for the Plus Suite, which looks like the same features as we had in the former Advanced Suite, the Advanced Suite without Plus. Please mute your microphone if you have no questions. Then we can see that the new Essentials Plus Suite is actually the same as the old Advanced Suite, and so on. What is interesting that is that in the Advanced Plus Suite, we have a license server, and in the Enterprise Plus Suite, we have an in case of an emergency license. In one Enterprise Suite, we have 2 ICE licenses. So that's really interesting. That's all about the suites. Well, almost all. One of the problems we had when we started with the virus, with the COVID-19 virus, is that we needed more licenses. And the first thing we thought about is, well, we need ICE license, right? Except ICE license are only good for 8 weeks. As you probably know, 8 weeks, which you can put on pause, but still you're limited to 8 weeks. Maybe we could use subscription Essentials Plus licenses instead of ICE licenses. If we take a good look, for example, if you have a small company and you need 50 more licenses, that's the same price as an ICE license, but that subscription license is good for a year. I'm not going to say which one of the two is the best. Just take a look at both of them if you need more licenses. Okay, let's go more technical. This on the screen now is an active passive cluster. Nothing special about it. It's just to go to somewhere else. So we have 2 PSA 3000s, which are limited each to 200 users. If you go higher, you have more users, of course, in a higher model. But these are limited to 200 users, which means in the cluster, we can only add 2 times 100 users as a maximum, and we have 200 users available. If you do an active-active cluster, we increase performance as long as both boxes are running, but we don't increase users. Performance is an issue too. We will see that later on in this presentation or in this webinar. But it will not add you any users. So you still need to do something else. You might need to add a box, or we could do this. We can actually not create a cluster, but use 2 boxes individually and copy automatically all the configuration from the first box to the second box without being a cluster, which means we can add 2 times 200 users. We have 400 users in total, and via VADC, we can spread those sessions among those 2 boxes up to 400 users. Now, the VADC is a load balancer, virtual application delivery controller, but with one special feature that, as far as I know, the others don't have, that is that this box knows how many users are connected to what box. So it can spread the users up to its full. It can check how many users it already has. So that's a very interesting feature about this VADC. We're going to configure this configuration. Before we configure, I need to explain you a bit about my setup. I have a virtual environment running here on my computer. I have 3 networks. I have, in more or less pink, DMZ, delimitarized zone, where my Pulse Secure boxes are in. I have 2 Pulse Connect Secures and 1 VADC. Then at the bottom in green, I have my trusted network. I have a domain controller. It's actually a 2019 core. And I have a domain joint PC, which is called PC Thread, called here to make it easy, corporate PC. And that PC has 2 interfaces. One interface is connected to the local network. And if I need to go outside, I can disable that interface and enable my secondary interface to be connected to the yellow network, which is actually the external network. And in between, I have a firewall. At the external network, I also have a private PC where I could simulate, if I want to, an external user working on his home computer. Now, let's get started. So at your right, you see the agenda, just for your information to know a bit where we are. talked about the new suites, the auth or subscription, 2 devices, and I'm going to continue on the 2 devices. Here at the top, I have my 2 devices. I don't need to go to the console, but I have them here too. And I'm going to connect those devices to Pulse One, because I can copy that configuration in several ways. So I first start with Pulse One, and to use Pulse One, I need to connect my appliances to Pulse One. So of course you need an account on Pulse One. It's included in the suites. I already connected my second box, so I still need to connect my first box. To do this, I do add appliance. I need to give it a name. It's my first box. I click save, and it gives me URL and some kind of a code. So I go to System, Configuration, Pulse One. I fill in the host name. I need the security key, and if you double click it, you have to take a good look. It adds a space here. So if it adds a space, we click save. And that's it. The box is connected now to the cloud environment. And once connected, it will collect some information about the boxes. You can have an overview of what is happening, etc., all that kind of stuff. But we don't want that at the moment. What we want to do is copy the configuration. For that, we need to create a group. We got the small wizard. We give it a group name, whatever. Next. We have a master appliance, which means I can only change the configuration of one appliance, and that configuration will be copied. That's PCS1. And we can even choose what part of the information we want to copy. I'm going to leave it as default, which is everything, and then finish. And we are almost done, except for the part that I still need to add a secondary appliance. So I need to click on the group, then add appliance. I can only select my secondary appliance, quite logical. Save, we're done, and it's started. So now it will already start copying everything from the first appliance to the second appliance. How strange it may seem, I will stop him, because I will show you another way of doing the same thing without being connected to Pulse One. So Pulse One would be very interesting to have a central overview, and for boxes that are geographically spread around the world. So the group is gone. I'm going back to my first appliance, and I'm going now to do the same thing, but locally for 2 boxes that are next to each other. We go to maintenance and we say push config. In the push config, I can select targets. So the target is actually my other box to where I want to copy my configuration. I add everything needs to sign in URL for administrative interface and the authentication realm for the administrator, who I want to connect to. So I have added the target. I haven't copied anything yet. I need to say from my available targets, I will add this Pulse Connect Secure, and I will do push configuration. And it started. It's running now. So now it will copy all the information from my first box to the second box, and I can leave this running as long as I want to. I presume, I didn't mention it, but I presume you know how to do the traditional clustering. From here, if you want to, you can go to where's the clustering part? Helps if you click on cluster. You on the first box, create cluster. You fill in everything, and on the second box, you click on join. You fill in everything, and by default, you will have an active cluster. So you just have to choose there if you need an active cluster. But I presume this is quite known stuff, so I won't talk about that too much in detail. Well, so we have now 2 boxes, PCS1 and PCS2. They are still linked to the cloud, but they are not in a group anymore. So you could still follow them over here, see what is happening. but they are not linked to each other via the cloud anymore. They are still locally. So the next thing I want to set up is my load balancer. So I have a load balancer running here at the top somewhere. You can see it called VADC. And to connect to it, well, I'm actually going to use Edge. Why Edge? Well, the certificate, which is supplied by default, is not trusted by Google Chrome at all. And I can't connect with the default certificate by using Chrome. So I'm going to use, I misclicked here, I'm going to use the Edge browser to connect to this VADC. So this is actually a completely empty, newly installed VADC. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to configure the VADC so you could do that next time yourself, and it will take you just about 5 minutes once you've done that. Some default stuff to accept. You can read the license agreement if you want to, but I just want to offer you to do that later on. You can give it a name. I'm going to leave it default. I am going to change the IP address to indeed this one. I am going to change the default gateway to this one because in my network, those were the addresses that I wanted. My DNS is correct and my domain is testthread.be. Helps, of course, if he remembers everything I need to type in. Yes, I understand. I know what I'm doing. I am in Europe, not in Amsterdam, but I'm in Brussels. No, I'm not in Brussels, but fair enough. The rest looks okay. Need to give a password. Yeah, let's do that. We're not going to install a license. Why not? I'm going to use a community edition. I can do everything I need to do. I have a 10 megabits bandwidth for free as long as I want to. So that's fair enough for me. An overview, finish, we're done. But now the IP address has changed. I actually chose for it to put it in my trusted VLAN because I have a DHCP server in that VLAN and I can easily connect to it. Once I was connected, or once the correct IP address is in there, I'm going to put it in the DMZ of PillSecure. Voila. And from now on, if everything is okay, I can connect via the administrative interface. Now this could be a bit strange. Is there like something happening with my network? So it looks pretty okay. There seems to be something wrong over here. No, this one is still up and running. Sorry guys for that. Nope, this is not okay. My domain controller got stuck. That's the good thing about virtual machines. So while this one is rebooting, I'm going to explain something else while we are waiting. One of the steps we will do a bit further on is configuring host checker. We can do several things with the host checker. We can do several things with the host checker. We can do an antivirus check. Do you have the antivirus? I presume you already configured that. But one of the things we can also do is do a certificate check. Does the machine have a certificate? And we can do that in several ways, but one of those is by host checker. As you can see also, this is a Mac, this is a Windows. I could also add a Linux computer, but there are not so many Linux computers for the end users. So be aware that you can also do host checking on Apple Macintosh and on all the things that are in here, and also today for certificates. I'm going to check if my computer is back. Should be. Not looking as it should be. It's coming, it's coming. No, you know what? We put in an IP address. Why don't we use the IP address? You know what? I know what I did wrong. It's my mistake. This is really a bit stupid mistake. I needed to change the VADC adapter. I didn't know if you saw it, but I need to change the adapter over here. And this will go much better. Okay, not replying yet, but it resolved. So the connection is done with my Windows server. I do have to correct, so I'm going to reboot this one too. I need to do that anyway, after changing the IP. That doesn't take too long. We'll be back soon. So for the people still watching, what I did is I configured this one. It was first in the local zone, and I change it now to this zone because I have this IP address and I can reach it from here. Should be about there. I did use the correct one now, didn't I? Those DMZs, okay. Double check for this one. Those DMZs, okay. Okay, that's called patience. And this looks much better. This way we will go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. You know what I mean? This is the web interface. I'm going to use a community edition. And voila, we are in, we can continue. So the first thing we need to do, we go to services and we need to create a traffic IP group. Virtual IP, and then IP address. I'm going to use it 220. What's that? Yes, this one, and create the IP group. Then we go to the wizards over here. There is a wizard especially for the Pulse Connect Secure. How nice is that? We have to give the service a name, PCS service. Next. We created a traffic IP group, which we will use. That may stay default. If we go to the HTTP side, we would like him to go automatically to the other one, to the HTTPS. So we click yes. Then here we add the host name. So we have pcs1.testthread.de. And we have pcs2.testthread.e. If you make a mistake over here, don't be afraid. It will give you an error. It resolves them, so don't be afraid. Voila, finish. Now we already have a load balancer, but we're not done yet. What we still have to do is we have to do the check to see if those machines are really capable of receiving more users. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to pools, and we edit them both. Edit this one. Click on yes, we want to check it, and watch this. We have specialty for Pulse Connect Secure and a Pulse Policy Secure. Now, what we have to fill in here, I have to copy. I don't know this out of my head. I could click on the drop down, but just to make sure, I copy it from my notepad that I have here next to me. Voila. And the rest can be left default. We are almost there. Just one to go for the HTTPS part. Pretty much the same thing. Voila. And update, just the ports are different. Voila, we're done. So from now on, if we click on the virtual IP address 220, if everything is okay, we will have login of the Pulse Connect Secure PCS1. Voila, you see, via the virtual IP, via the load balancer. So this this load balancer is actually up and running. That's about it for the load balancer. So I go back to, don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore. I go back to the Pulse Connect Secure administrative interface. We talked about two devices now, several ways of configuring it, and the load balancer to put in front of it to select one of those two. Next thing up is Mac users. Mac users, well, you hate them or you love them, but they are there. Even I at home, I use a Mac. So we need to support them too. And you don't have remote desktop by default on an Apple Macintosh. Okay, you can install the application, but still some of them don't even know how to do that. So what we can do, and it's quite practical in this environment, is add an HTML5 connection, especially for remote desktop. We can create this for remote desktop. We can create this for SSH, and we can create this for Telnet. So this is my client for RDP to my domain controller. So if I take a quick test, I could use my other computer. Why not? This is my external computer, and I do new incognito window. Why an incognito window? Because I was already connected with the administrator. I use the user demo. This is quite known, I think, this screen, and I have an HTML5 connection, which will open the remote desktop to my to my Windows 2019 core server. It is a 2019 core server, so I don't really have a desktop, but you can see that it works. and that we are in the browser interface still. You see, it's not a remote desktop client. It's really a browser interface. So that's about it. Going back to my other interface. Now, maybe you saw it, but I could log on without supplying a username and a password. Now, how is that possible? Well, I go to bookmarks. Actually, that makes part of the single sign-on here at the bottom, more or less. I click on this bookmark. And then here you can say, well, reuse the user and reuse the password to try to log on to this remote desktop server. And then you're in without supplying a secondary password. That's very easy to use, isn't it? At the bottom of the same screen, you can choose some things, keyboard layouts. You can try to, depending on if you use HTML5 or the remote desktop standard, if you want to connect your printers, network drives, that's all on this screen. See? Okay, next up, also for the Mac users, you can download a client over here too. That's actually for everyone, but you could use the system to system installers. Where is that? There, download your MSI file or your file to download to install on your Macintosh computer over here. See? So you have all the different downloads you can use, and you can use this to distribute. Later on, I will show you how you can easily import the configuration to your client. Next step, certificates. Well, we have a lot of certificates on Pulse Connect Secure. First one we have is here at the top. Now, this certificate I created as I should. I mean, this is, if we take a good look, a correct certificate. It's for my device. It's by my domain controller, and I trust this certificate, and it's valid. The only problem over here is that, well, I can show you if you go to more tools, developer tools, that the subject alternative name is missing. So the certificate is valid. If you would check it over here, pcs2.testthread.be/demo, and please do HTTPS. Then, oh, now it complains. Okay, some other problem for the moment. So normally my certificate is okay. I must have done something wrong. Not going to look for it. But it's because a certificate alternative name is missing. So if you're looking to do this okay, don't try to create your certificate from the Pulse Connect Secure via a certificate signing request, etc., because it will fail any case. You need to do that with another tool, which can include a subject alternative name. It's not supported by Pulse Secure. Okay, this being said, once you start working with certificates, it's very important that you import the root certificate from your CA. You do this in the configuration tab. You go to trusted client CAs, and you have it over here. So I exported my certificate with the private certificate included, very important, from my domain controller that is also CA, and then I imported it over here. So from now on, all certificates signed with the certificate will be trusted. While we are here at device certificates, you see that the certificates which are being used over here at the top. And you can see here that I use the certificate, which is actually signed by the same certificate. This is something else, don't look at that. So if you want to allow a computer certificate or a user certificate, well, then you need to configure a certificate server. So we go to authentication servers, and then you say, let's add a certificate server, and click on new server. You fill in the name. That's it. Leave all the rest for default, and you're done. I'm not going to click save because, as you can see, I have one over here, which is called certserv, and it's created. For the rest, nothing you need to do over here at last. Then we go into the realms. We could use, for example, going to the realms. Come on, guy. we have my user logon. I'm going to talk about user logon here. And the only thing I do over here is doing my AD logon, which you probably do at your place too. But one of the things I could do is say, well, let's check for the certificate. And then as a secondary step, I'm going to check my AD credentials, right? So I save this. I have my connection here at the right. I click on connect and it fails. Why? Missing or invalid client certificate. I will open it. It has the same warning here. Why is it? Well, it's quite logical. Did you see me creating a certificate? No, so let's make one. This is the screen you know as MMC, and then file, remove snap-ins. You add the certificate. Well, I added several certificate tabs, one for the local computer and one for the current user. I'm using a user certificate at the moment, so I right click. I do all tasks, request new certificate. The computer should be domain in the same domain. The domain the CA server should be reachable. You go next, next. You select I'm a user now, the user certificate, enroll, and we're done, finished. So in the local computer, you see he already asked me for a password. I didn't even do something. In the local computer, he added the user certificate. So I will add my credentials now. Hope I didn't mistype. Voila, and we are connected. That's all. I'm going to disconnect and show you something else. Let's go to the external user where we may use a browser. New incognito window, the demo, and now it says missing certificate. You see, so even in the browser, this check is being done. So this user can't connect because he doesn't have a certificate. I don't trust him. We go back to this corporate computer. We do the same thing via the web. New incognito window. We go to the demo. It will pop up normally and ask me to supply the certificate, and now we can continue. Now, what could be the problem is, I know from our experience that it can take a while after disconnecting in my environment. It's very typical my environment because I'm doing strange things over here, that it takes a while until he's back to know I'm in this network. And I think it's the firewall because I'm switching from one part of the firewall to the other part of the firewall. So I'm going to go another way via this computer. I can go to the interface too. Well, while we are waiting, you know, he would pop up for the certificate. I'm going to show you how you can do the same test in a different way. If we go to the realm, so I'm going to put this back as it was. No, disable it, sorry for that. And save. We can go to authentication policy and go to certificate and then say, well, only the trusted certificates are allowed. When we do that and we do connect, he will say, well, you don't have a certificate, you can't connect. Voila. See, same thing, different way. I'm going to save that again. And then we go to the host checker. Okay, the host checker. If we go to the host checker, that's authentication endpoint security host checker. I already have one policy, and I have a CA check in here. If you take a look, you can see trusted by my CA. Maybe I could add another one, add in the Mac tab, and say I'm going to do a check for the certificates here at the bottom, machine certificates, add, and then say Mac cert, any certificate from this one, save changes, and that would do pretty much the same thing. CN is, do I need star? Or was it? Ah, it's because it's an existing one. Okay, it's already over here. So, well, you see, I have here for Windows, I have here for Mac. It's already filled in. Maybe it's easier to open it. See, nothing in it. And if we do a check now, no, it's not yet related. We go to user realm. We go to the user logon. We go to authentication policy, host checker, and then enable the host checker. And we do connect. And all those things we can do from the web browser too. See, there is a compliance issue. So what he says is different, but it's pretty much the same thing. You can see endpoint is out of compliance, remediation required, etc., etc. And you can, I didn't show you, but you can play a bit with the words. If we go to endpoint security host checker, we can say what he needs to say if the system is not compliant. I believe it was over here. And you can choose over here. Oh, he's not saying these words. Maybe it's just in the browser window. So this about a host checker. I'm going to disable it again so I can still continue. Host checker, and then say, well, allow everything. And then again, he will ask me for my credentials here if I will reconnect. Voila. So I could connect if I wanted to. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you is really machine authentications. Oh, pros and contras. It's what you need. It's what you need. It's what you want. What I personally would do is what I will explain now. And the last thing I will explain is how I do it, and that's actually a combination of machine authentication with a certificate and user authentication with a certificate. Now, that's quite some work. It's a 50-minute work. I created a separate video about this. So if you go to, maybe I can show you on corporate PC. Do I have my network back? Yes, I do. And you go to Kappa Data channel on YouTube. I will put the link in the chat. Nope, that's not the link. Voilà. Then you can go to, I'm going to pause this. And you see here already, there's a video about machine, it's not automation, it's a small mistake. It's authentication, machine authentication and user authentication of Full Secure. I will show you now here, more or less where you can find the configuration, but a complete how-to you will find in that video. So the things we need to do is creating an authentication server. We did that, import the root certificate. We did that. We have to create a sign-in policy. I have the sign-in policy over here. The sign-in policy is called /cert. And it's related to the Realm machine cert. So I go to the Realm machine cert. And I do certificate authentication, nothing more over here. And then if you go to users, and this is where the fun part starts, we can create a connection for the client. I have a connection to bring your configuration to the client. There are some things to do, but this part is the most interesting one. Here we say you need to connect to this URL. At the bottom, we have machine or user. If you choose user, it's user authentication as we just did. If you do machine, it will always do machine authentication no matter who is logging on. That means if an untrusted user would log on to a trusted machine, it will have a VPN. If you do machine or user, it will do a combination of the two. At boot time, the machine will receive or will authenticate the VPN with a machine certificate, and afterwards, once the user is logged on, it will authenticate by using a user certificate, which means that you can have a combination and it will always go as it should go. Now, I use this for my new machine. I have a new computer. That's why I can run so much virtual machines. Thank you for that, Kappa Data. I have a new computer, but because of the virus, I'm at home. So one of my colleagues brought me the computer and said, well, here's your computer, play with it. You're a techie, you can do it yourself. Yeah, that's nice, but I never logged on with my domain user on that computer. There was created for me a local, well, they actually did that via team viewer. They created a local admin, and then I did this. I did all this by with my local administrator. I created machine authentication. I rebooted. I could log on for the first time. Never did that before on this computer with my domain user. Wasn't that great? I didn't need to go to the office. Not that I don't like to go to the office, but you know the story. So I select machine or user, and I have the combination. And you can leave the rest here at the bottom default. And once that is done, we need to configure this client. So what we need to do for this is go to the client component. You click what we just created. Well, you have to create this component too here by selecting this one. It's all in the other video, but I would spend too much time in doing that. You click on download installer, and then I have created a small script. I move this to tools, and in tools, this here, I have created a script that is called import. And the only thing that I do is this command, and with the parameter import file, so I can do import file from what I just downloaded, and take a look at the right, it has changed. It's doing now machine authentication with the user certificate. Voila, it's connected. But going to disconnect again. But if I would reboot, it wouldn't work. Why wouldn't it work? Well, I have my user certificate, but I don't yet have a computer certificate. So I have to do all tasks. I'm in the computer part, request new certificate, pretty much the same as for my user, except for now I will select computer. Ignore the other one. Voila, and we have now a computer certificate. We could now reboot and have a connection automatically. That's all we need to do, and we are up and running. Okay. Let's talk about multi-factor authentication. I presume you all already use multi-factor authentication. At least I hope so. So your configuration should be something similar like this. I go to my user realm. And now we have user logon. You should have this, and then maybe you added an extra voila, authentication from one login, for example, here, and then save. So if my other computer would connect via the web interface, you incognito window, PCS demo, I have more fields. You can play with how many fields, but that's not the interesting part over here. The thing is, this is more or less how you did this. You have your multi-factor authentication. Okay, now I lost my phone or something, or you have your phone, but you lost this token. So your primary, secondary, how strange this may sound, authentication is missing, lost, forgotten at the office. I don't know. I can't call in and dial in anymore. I can't connect. Okay, we can give the user an option for an alternative multi-factor authentication. And how can we do that? Well, for example, let's configure Google authentication. That's pretty easy to do so. We go to authentication servers. We click the last one, DTOTP new server. We say we want to Google Authenticator, and then we check it all except for the last one. But you can do that. It's just my choice in doing this. So we have that part. Then we go to the user realm. we create a new realm. We say user with Google, and we say, well, the first one is okay, and the second one is the Google Authenticator. Voila, save changes. It will jump to the role mapping, new role, any user gets the user role. I'm not saying you need to do this, you can do it however you like it. Then I go to the signing in policies. I go to my demo environment, and instead of saying do the user logon, I'm going to add with Google. Don't forget to check this one, save changes. If I go back to my external computer and I reconnect, we have a list. So we can say by default it goes to user logon, but maybe if you lost your token or you forgot your token, then you go to here. And Graham, by the way, thank you for answering all these chats. You make it very easy for me. You can say user with Google, we give the password. Now, the user doesn't have a Google phone connected yet. Well, here it is. Automatically, it asks the user to assign his phone, and we're off. See? Of course, I would suggest you do that upfront. No, not at the moment that he really needs it. So you're sure it's the correct person, and not everyone can try this. But anyway, this is how you can add some kind of a fallback by using Google OTP. Okay, but I have another problem. What if I lost my password? You know, PillSecure has a way of changing your password if you know your password, but it has no way of changing your password if you lost your password. But you do have external tools to do so, but it's not mentioned over here. You can't do it over here, or can you? Well, one of the tools we use to arrange passwords is we use OneLogin. Well, OneLogin has the possibility of changing lost passwords. How do we do that? Well, we go to the sign-in policies, and for the demo, I created another sign-in page. Sign-in page is the HTML code, and I select it just over here, not using the default one, but the customized one. And if we take a look at how it looks, the customized one, sign-in pages, customized, you will see I added some HTML code. See, some HTML code is added. Doesn't matter what's in there. You will see that in the live part. And you also see that it's all in Dutch now. So you can use your own language if you want to. So let's go to the other computer and refresh this page. And how does it look? Oh, okay, voila, we have a logo. The rest is quite similar, except for forgot a password. You can click here. And if you click on that, it's just a link to another system where we have the possibility to ask for a new password if you have lost your password. See, forgot password. And this is also connected to my Active Directory. So automatically my Active Directory will be changed, and you will decrease the number of calls to your support desk by using that kind of system. Maybe you already have something in place to change your password outside PillSecure, then you can link it this way. All right, I explained you that single sign-on part from the remote desktop. What we can also do is go to Salesforce and use SAML. So to show you first, I go into new window. I will go to Salesforce. See, I have a link to Salesforce. And my Salesforce page for my company, Test Kappa, has a link at the bottom, SSL Kappa. If I click on that, it will redirect me to my PillSecure. As you can see, this is actually, it's the same thing, but except for this is my public name. So I can go from the internet to my, to my virtual PillSecure. I forwarded the ports, and I have exactly the same logon here. I need to, of course, disable my MFA part here. Otherwise, I can't show you. Let's go to realms. User logon. No secondary server. Save. Should be enough. Then I go back to my other computer. Nope, it was my other browser. Retry Salesforce. Looking better. I do demo, password of demo. And doing a SAML connection, as you can see at the top. And it goes back to Salesforce. And we're in Salesforce now. There is nothing in Salesforce. This is just the development account. But it's good enough to show you that SAML works. Pretty much the same thing you can do with Office 365. I'm not going to go through the configuration entirely, just some parts because it takes some work to do so. We have SAML configuration at several parts. I'm thinking about maybe creating a new webinar, especially for Office 365. We'll see how that goes, and that might be more practical, and then we see it in detail how to do so. If I would do it now, it will easily take half an hour to do so, so that's too much. Another thing is performance. So we're here in the performance part. So the first thing we can do is use a load balancer. I explained you that when we started. The second thing we can do is make sure that we don't browse through the tunnel. So if you go to the user part and we go to resource policies and then split tunneling, oops, user resource policies and then split tunneling networks, we can actually choose what traffic that will go through my tunnel. So I selected only these IP addresses. You can choose, you can give ranges, you can give networks. You see, you can use a minus to, like that's not here, but you can use a minus to add several IP addresses in one block. And you select the role to which this split tunneling rule applies. And once you click save, only those addresses will go through the tunnel, and then you show that the rest will continue as directly to the user's own gateway. Okay, then for performance, we can decrease security. I'm not going to say that it's a good idea, but we can decrease security to gain some speed, of course. So same thing, resource policies, but then we choose the connection profiles. And if you have a connection profile, especially for that, so this is my DHCP, and we go down. If you use SSL, we have higher security, but if you use ESP, we have more performance. So as long as you don't have any performance issue, don't touch it, leave it on SSL, or put it on SSL, whatever you want. But if you have 200 users on a PSA 3000, you could have some performance issues, and you could start looking at this. Another thing we could do is go to system configuration, security, and then inbound SSL options. So if we scroll down a bit, where is it? Use custom ciphers. Then you can lower your ciphers and only select less secure but faster ciphers to speed up a bit. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the slides because I'm nearly at the end, and the other things I want to tell you are also about performance. We would suggest you to upgrade. upgrade to the latest version. So there are already some updates in the past, which I mentioned over here, to increase performance. But if you look at the fixes that are written now today for since the COVID-19 virus is out, well, there are quite a lot, because starting from everybody working home, a lot of problems came up, some problems came up, and of course, lots of them were performance issues. So there have not all, but a lot of them are already resolved, and they will come out in the near future or are already out in later versions. So please do install your upgrades, and then you're sure about increasing performance. So that's about it. I'm going to read a bit in the chat if I have any questions. I have a lot of them. Okay. Can split tunneling be defined on a per application basis instead of on the destination IP? Graham, stand by me, but if I'm not mistaken, the answer would be no. It's only by using the IP address.
Hey, Frederick. So yes, that's true if we're using full layer 2 VPN. So we could do FQDN, fully qualified domain name, as well as IP addresses, but yes, all traffic from all applications to that domain name or that IP address would either go down the tunnel or not. However, if you're using what used to be Windows Secure Application Manager, or the application level specification within the Pulse client, you can tell traffic for certain applications to go over the VPN rather than traffic to certain destinations. So does that make sense? I can't remember the name we use it. We call it now. It's not Windows Secure Application Manager anymore. It's something. We have a different name for it, but effectively that's application-based VPN rather than IP address split tunneling.
Okay, I don't know the name either. Thank you for that.
I'll find out.
And then I see a question coming up: can fully qualified domain names be used for split tunneling? Well, that's actually what Graham just explained. Yes, you don't need to supply the IP address. You can add FQDN. I think all the questions.
Yeah, it's PSAM now rather than WSAM, so Pulse Secure Application Manager. But effectively, that's saying use the tunnel at layer 4 rather than an IP level, and then you can specify, for example, a Windows executable. So the classic example would be to say, take all traffic from outlook.exe on my client and send that traffic over the VPN, while everything else just goes out to the internet as normal. So effectively, that's application-based split tunneling, but it's done at layer 4 rather than doing it as an IP or a FQDN level.
Okay, thank you. For people that put questions in the chat, there is already a lot of questions and answers in the chat. I presume all those answers or all those questions have already been answered. If not, please put them in the chat again. All right. If there are, oh, there's still a question. I think that Graham, is that
I don't think we would say it's deprecated. As far as I can think, we still have plenty of people using split tunneling. In fact, that I can think of several use cases where it's definitely something that needs to be used. So we give people the choice. You can turn split tunneling off. We have some people with security concerns that they don't want to use split tunneling at all, so you can certainly turn it off, but the feature is absolutely still there. And in fact, the fully qualified domain name split tunneling is a relatively new addition, I think last year.
Yeah. If any questions would pop up later on, my email address is at the bottom of the screen, so you can mail me And we have the videos on the YouTube channel of Kappa Data. This video will also be put over there, so you can review this video as well as the video about the MAC authentication, not the MAC authentication, the machine authentication at boot time without logging on, and some other videos which might be interesting for you too. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope to hear you later.
Thank you for joining.